Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's your boy Blue Raspberry Addict back at it again, and today we're going to be talking about install characters. An install in a fighting game is pretty much just like a powered up mode that a character goes into. Sometimes it'll give them new special moves, sometimes it'll just make them attack faster, sometimes it'll let them chain moves that they can't normally chain, cancel things they can't normally cancel. It's pretty much just a buffed up state, and that is what we call an install. Most of the time this is tied to a character's special move or super, but sometimes the game has install mechanics as a base feature, something like Street Fighter V's V-Trigger or Killer Instinct's Instinct Mode. Those are kind of like base game installs. Even something like Marvel 3's X Factor is like an install comeback mechanic. So sometimes the game will have one built in, but most of the time your install will come from a character's super or special. Now, if you're newer to fighting games and you've only played some of the more popular ones, you might immediately jump to Kai Kisk as an example. You think, oh well, he has a move literally called Dragon Install, and well, yes, that is an install. Kai isn't an install character. Install characters are characters where their entire game plan and pretty much everything about them is defined by the install itself. Kai has an install, sure, but it's kind of just like a little bonus thing he can pop. Most people didn't even bother using Kai's install until very recently, and it's far from Kai's defining feature. Funnily enough, if you want a good example of an install character, look no further than someone from the exact same game, Aba. Aba's Jealous Rage mechanic and her install is the entire defining feature of her character. Without it, she is slow, sluggish, absolutely terrible, super hard to play, super hard to do pretty much anything with, but the second she pops it and she can go into her install mode, she becomes pretty much the single strongest character in the game. Oh, actually, on God, maybe outside of Potemkin nowadays, he might still be a bit better. But anyway, it's the entire core identity of Aba as a character. Going into this mode is how she wins games, and being able to mitigate the downside of playing in a very, very underpowered mode is the key to winning with her. Funnily enough, something that's Aba has that's not necessarily an exclusive is her install is tied to a meter or timer. A lot of characters have this. You'll see Kai, for instance, once he pops his install, doesn't have a timer. He just stays in Dragon Install until he dies. Where characters like Aba from Guilty Gear and Yun from Street Fighter, their installs work a bit differently, and they work as kind of a temporary power boost. They can go into the mode for a time, and in that mode they are extraordinarily strong, but then they have to go back to a weaker state. Most install characters you'll find will either be one of these two options. They'll either be very, very strong for a short period of time, or they'll just be super weak, but once they go into their install, they'll be strong permanently. Funnily enough, there are characters that entirely ignore this concept in general. If we take a look at a very infamous install character, maybe one of the most of all, Virgil in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, he is a amazing character without his install. He has TPs, he has literally everything. Actually, there's not a single thing this guy doesn't have. Super fun to play, but definitely not bad without his install. And then when you give him his install, you know, he gets a little motivated. Let's just say,
running the split, pockets so cold, yeah, shows my drip, yeah, look at my head, yeah, put in the bag, I'm on go.
yeah, Virgil is something else. Another character that's kind of like that, actually, is a character I'm not even sure was meant to be an install character. I feel like it was just a fun super they put in, but it ended up being so terminally broken that it just became the entire character's identity, and that is Street Fighter Third Strike's Yun, because the second you see this, it's just over for you, bro. Ain't no one saving you from that one, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, some characters are still strong without their install. The install just pushes them over the top, but that has settled down in recent times as people realize that that's just not balanced, and more characters are becoming like Aba, where they're weak and then they can pop off for a time. Another good example of this is Vera in the Granblue series. Vera is an interesting one as she starts off in not the worst character state. She's like playable, but she's just kind of worse than most people. But either by spending your meter or landing a cheeky command grab, then Vera can go into her empowered state and become a very, very fun and solid character. And this is another example of a install character. Her entire identity is around going into like this holy mode type thing, but it is pretty difficult to do because you either have to build up the meter, without dying, or you have to land the command grab, which is pretty hard against players that know it's coming. There are also other, I guess, kind of type install characters that they kind of do multiple installs that build up over time. I think the best example I can give for this is Adult Gohan in Dragon Ball FighterZ. He has a bunch of different times where he has like levels, and the more levels he goes up, the more stuff he can do with his character. Kind of same thing with like with Jamie in Street Fighter 6. The more drinks he has, the more moves he unlocks, the better his frames get, the more fancy stuff he gets, stuff like that. And those are also different types of install characters, just not as core to the concept as someone like Abba or Vera. If you're looking to play install characters, do get ready for a solid amount of labbing, because, well, learning the character is one thing, learning all the different stuff your install allows you to do is very different. Something like Abba, you're gonna have to learn pretty much two different characters, one where you're just trying to keep yourself alive and find the opening to go into your power, and then once you're in Jealous Rage, you're gonna have to learn how to actually play the character and deal damage. Same kind of thing with most install characters, even characters that aren't designed as naturally install characters. Something like Juri from Street Fighter 6, she does have an install super, and, well, a lot of people just ignore it. You would have to do a lot of extra labbing if you want to make use of that install. Install characters are generally pretty strong though, and once you pick them up, they are definitely threatening. And even something like Abba, who's not necessarily top tier, she is one of the scariest counter picks in Guilty Gear Strive because of how strong she is in that install mode. And if you want me to name, I normally name off a bunch of the characters that are known as install characters, but I've already kind of named them most of the like faces of the archetype, I think, throughout the video. We have Abba, Virgil, Vera, Yun, Adult Gohan, even something like, you can kind of say Dark Phoenix in UMC 3, where she's Phoenix for most of the game and then she pops Dark Phoenix at the end and it's like a whole different mode, stuff like that. But any character, again, a lot of characters can have installs. It doesn't really make them an install character, but when it's core to their game plan and going into this mode is what your win condition is, that is when it becomes a install character. Actually, something really important about install characters is you can be an install character and install your finger on the subscribe button right now, and it actually gives you a crazy buff to your IRL stats. That's not a joke. That's not a scam. Try it out. See for yourself. But other than that, TLDR, an install character or an install in general is just a powered up mode. Yeah, a lot of characters will have them, but not necessarily all of them revolve around it. Some of them will give them new moves and stuff. Some of them are a little bit more quirky. Think of like even Morgan in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, her astral vision, astral projection thing. It's like a kind of an install, but it's not. It's a little bit different, if you know what I mean. But other than that, yeah, they're power-ups. Sometimes characters have them and you can just throw them out whenever you're feeling it. Other time, if it's characters like Abba, entirely that's what the character revolves around, and you're gonna need to learn how to play with the install on if you want to play the character. Same kind of thing with Yun. If you want to be really good at Yun, you're gonna have to learn how to play with Ganajin. Stuff like that is what I'm talking about. But that should be all for me. I hope you guys learned something today. If you did enjoy, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all the nice algorithmic stuff. Algorithmic. Bro, I'm brain dead. Anyway, make sure to hit all the fun buttons on YouTube and let me know in the comments what you want to see next. Any type of content explaining, talks, literally anything. Just let me know what you guys want to see, and that'll do it for me. Thank you all for watching, and of course, have a good night.